if the chat is turned on.
I can't, I'm trying to find the chat.
Yeah,
See,
but you can tell everybody, everybody on Zoom is gonna be like, it's just stored in. You have to tell them, go to East Whiteland, whatever your website is to go to the.
okay, all right, give me 1 minute.
You could only about 5 people.
Now there's 20,
It'd be-
19,
Oh, now?
And we're like 2 or 3.
okay. All right, let me see something, let me see if I can get them in here. I'm having a problem getting them in. Are they in? Can you tell if they're in?
Hmm?
Like, are they in?
Yeah, they're already in. It's not like a Zoom where you have to admit them, I don't think.
Okay,
They're already,
Okay.
they're all muted. You just have to.
okay,
They
okay.
can raise their
I
hand and
can't
then they
figure
can
out,
talk.
where do I talk, where do I,
Now, the strange thing is when Nick was talking on his Zoom, we could hear him clearly in here. So I think if you do click like Larry to give his thing, we should be able to hear him fine.
all right,
But
let me
he's-
just test with them.
Yeah, he's just gonna hear us distorted.
Where is he at? I don't see Larry, do you?
Mm,
They're coming in slowly again.
Yeah.
There's Marco. Let me see if I can talk with Marco. See, here's where I can't figure, I can't talk. Why can't I talk?
Well, normally you would talk by talking through one of the microphones.
Oh, that's true. But I can't, I mean, I can't send them a message.
Right,
Donna, you hear me?
Oh, look, there's Marco.
yeah.
Oh, I'm in. Okay, they're in. Okay. Okay. Look. Are they kidding?
Let raise an hand already.
Mhm.
I think the board just wants to get started.
All right,
Yeah.
just go ahead and start.
All right.
And so
We'll just deal with it as we go.
Okay.
All right, so what is gonna happen is
So apparently they can hear me talking to them on Zoom. So I'm gonna just say that, yeah, can you guys all hear me? If you can hear me, just kind of raise your hand. We're gonna start the meeting. And if you have a question or you want to ask something, then just, I'm gonna give you my email address. It's DWIKERT. So it's Donna Weichert at eastwhiteland.org.
ready to go.
Okay. I'm gonna get out.
Good evening, everyone. Apologize for the delay. At this time, I'd like to call to order the June 10th, 2026 East Whiteland Township, East Whiteland Board of Supervisors meeting. If we can please stand and I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In the past 2 weeks, in the world of municipal um, uh, and personal worlds surrounding us, there's been a couple sad situations. And the first, I want to ask if we could have a moment of silence because our manager, Steve Brown, lost his father last week. And board has provided condolences, but would like to offer a moment of silence for your dad. So. Thank you. Also, I just want to take a moment to also honor the passing of former West Whiteland Fire Chief George Bud Turner, and for the passing of Central Berks Regional Police Officer Christine Yeager, who both died in traffic accidents. If we can also have a moment of silence for those folks. Thank you. I will also add that Bud Turner was also supervisor over in West Whiteland for a number of years. Moving on, we've had board briefings and executive sessions were held today, June 10th, in which we discussed legal, personnel, and real estate issues. Next up is an update on our grant awards. Catherine, if you can lead us through that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any updates for this month.
Okay. And if you can give us an update on our curative amendment process that we went through the last 2 weeks.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah, I'll start with a summary of the timeline here. So at the April 27th special meeting of the Board of Supervisors, the board declared the zoning ordinance invalid as it pertains to zoning for data centers in any zoning district. At the May 13th meeting, the Board of Supervisors named 4 members of the public. That includes 1 member from the EAC plus 3 additional members from the public to assist staff and our professionals in writing the text. So since that May 13th meeting, the working group met at least weekly to draft the text. And due to the tight time frame constraints, we do have to have this complete by September 27th, which seems very far away from now, but there are multiple layers of review that need to happen during that time each week as the text was prepared. And this was announced at the May meeting. It was also posted to the Township website and social media to allow the public to provide comments in real time. Comments were received, discussed with the group, and incorporated into the text as appropriate. And we're pleased to report that the working group has completed that work, drafting the text, and it has been transmitted on to the next phase of this process, which is to send it to the Chester County Planning Commission for comment and consideration at its July 8th meeting. And once those comments are received, it'll go on to our Planning Commission tentatively at their July 22nd meeting, and then a tentative date to be determined based on if there's any comments that are received before the Board of Supervisors. As we continue to receive comments, those will all be posted real time to the Township website and to social media so people can see what's going on with the status of the text. So there's no action required of the board this evening, but we just wanted to provide you an update based on the direction that was given at the May meeting.
I sat in on the meetings for the past 2 weeks in the curative amendment group. And it was a great working event that occurred for the first time here in the township where we involved residents. There was a lot of knowledge, a lot of sharing of ideas. And I think we have a curative amendment that is set up for a data center ordinance that probably is going to be a prototype for a lot of different townships out there. It's very, very detailed. Thank everyone that was involved with it, and Catherine for leading us through that process.
Yeah, and if I should have actually mentioned this before, but I just wanted to thank our residents by name who gave a lot of time
Yes,
out of their schedules too. So it was Mike Malter from the EAC, Tony G, Steve Michelson, and Carl Abramson. Just a huge thank you to them. They were incredibly connected to the material and thoughtfully contributed comments, and it was a good collaborative effort. So thank you to them.
and a special shout out to Tony G. Because he was representing and working with upwards between 7 and 15 other people throughout the community, and he was putting together notes and bringing them in, and he put a lot of effort into it. Thank you, Tony. Moving on, Dave, on the financial audit that was just completed.
Thank you. Yes. This past month, we had the 2025 financial audit completed. Maley LLP was our financial auditors. We had a very good audit report from them. Working well with them was very smooth. We didn't have any major findings. Just to kind of give you a summary of where we are, our net position as of the end of the year. Our governmental funds was 29.3 million. And in our business type activities, which is essentially the sewer fund, we had 58.5 million in our net position. So that's net, the assets net of the liabilities. Our year-end general fund balance was 7.1 million, which equates to a little over 30% of the 2025 expenditures. That's a very healthy balance. Generally, you want to be at least 15 to 20%. You'd like to be higher if possible. So where we are is very healthy based on Government Finance Officers Association recommendations. The Capital Improvement Fund has a fund balance of 12.2 million. The Park Development Fund is at 4.1 million. The Open Space Fund is at 8.5 million. Our total outstanding debt, including the 2025 bond for the open space, is 26.7 million. Big thank you to Marco Agostini, my Assistant Finance Director, for all his work in the audit, as well as the other staff here, Naveen, Dave Stone, Catherine, Steve, for their support as well. There's a lot of information gathering that goes on during the audit and help the process go very smoothly.
Any questions for anyone? Okay,
Okay.
Dave, thank you.
Thank you.
Donna, I don't know if we're going to be able to connect with Larry online.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Larry, we can, and there's not even an echo.
Oh, lovely. I guess I'm a black box though, so I'll speak to you from the void if that's all right. Yeah, so Parks and Rec updates. We got a lot going on here. We're in the prime season for Parks and Recreation. We had our first Chill on the Hill concert of the season last May, featuring John Fay and Tucked In, a very successful night. Hopefully that goes into our concert for next week as well. On Wednesday, June 17th, we're featuring artist Brother Wallace and local Philadelphia artist Kikishima. New for next week's concert is we're going to have shirts for sale for the first time featuring our Chill on the Hill logo and our acts for the summer. This will act as a sort of fundraising for this event and others throughout Parks and Rec to keep this and event coming back for future years. Looking a little bit further down the line, we have summer camp starting on June 22nd. Training and orientation starts next week as well. Later in the summer, we have Shakespeare in the Park coming back. We did this for the first time last year. This year is coming back on Friday, July 24th, and we're showing Hamlet. Very excited for that. Finally, later in the summer, we're going to do our annual movie night like we have before. Friday, August 28th, mark your calendars. We're going to be showing the Super Mario Galaxy movie. A little bit further into the year, we have our community day, our third annual community day on Sunday, September 20th. And finally, a little bit after that, a brand new event, hot off the presses. Thanks to Scott for organizing this. We're going to be doing a 3-on-3 basketball tournament in partnership with Global Sports Academy. This is going to be at the Grove Shopping Center. So more details to come on that soon, but be on the lookout for more information and information to sign teams up. And that's Parks and Rec in a nutshell.
Hey Larry, this is Peter.
Hey, Peter.
On the way home, I heard an advertisement on WXPN about the concert this next Wednesday concert for the Chill on the Hill. So that was really exciting to hear over the radio waves.
It's great to hear. Yeah, next week's concert is in partnership with WXPN. They are presenting Brother Wallace on that stage. So thanks to them for being such a great partner and putting the word out for our amazing shows here in our township.
All right, thank you. Dave, you're back up.
I am back. This is a request from Great Valley School District. There were 3 parcels that the school district has purchased, but before you tonight are just 2 of those parcels. Those 2 parcels went before the County Board of Assessment, where the county ruled that these parcels that the school district owns are going to be tax exempt for 2027 and going forward. The school district has requested that the 2026 taxes be exonerated. There's no requirement to do that. The county has exonerated the taxes for the school district for these 2 properties. These properties are located along Moores Road. The one tax bill at face value is $4,986.94, and the other tax bill at face value is $29.07. So the school district has requested that the township exonerate the taxes.
For clarification for the audience, that is the building, the former Teva building, basically at the corner of Moores and 401.
That's correct.
Any questions from the public? Would you like to make a motion?
Sure, no problem making a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the tax exemption for the school district, for the Great Valley School District request to exonerate district-owned properties at 41 Moores Road from the 2026 township taxes for parcels 4203-0045, 06A, 0? Okay. And 4203-0334, 0000.
Do you have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And passes.
And just to clarify, that third property, once it goes through the county, assuming it is ruled exempt, will come before the board probably at the July meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Showing up next on the agenda is 3B, but at this point in time, this particular item is being removed, tabled for a later date. Catherine, on 3C.
Thank you. Yeah, Zach's gonna put a map to orient everyone to the property I'm gonna discuss. So this will look familiar to the board and the public, hopefully. The dark blue area delineates the Ridley Springs property. And so for the last several months, the Open Space Committee has been working on another potential acquisition, which is what's shown in the lighter blue on the interior of that site. And despite what you might think that that is an out parcel currently that the township does not have control over, but we were approached by this landowner within the last year looking to make arrangements to sell this property to the township for open space purposes. It's about 3.5 acres and currently contains one historic home on it. And so the Open Space Committee has completed reviewing, scoring, and recommending this property unanimously for purchase to the Board of Supervisors. So the suggested action before the board this evening is to authorize the township manager to execute the agreement of sale for UPI 42645, which is the Repin property located on Morstein Road.
Any questions from the public?
One question online.
I'm here. Can you hear me? I was really happy to see this. Frank Ripon and Diane are neighbors of mine, and I loved Frank, and I know that property and that house is so amazing, and so is the property, and I think this would make him happy because he was always surrounded by the open space you acquired. And I guess that's just it. I'm really, I'm almost emotional about it because Frank was a great neighbor, and I know how much Diane must miss him. And this is just such a great tribute to his memory. And that's it.
Thanks, Kyle.
Again, this is part of the overall plan and transactions associated with the open space amendment that we had and resolution that we had put through last year. So this is another example of a success, a win through this. And that individual, that family reached out to us is even better. So again, if there's ever a point in time where you feel as though you want to donate some of your land for open space, I'm sorry, not donate it, but to have us have the opportunity to purchase it underneath the open space referendum, by all means, reach out to us. I guess, Clinton, would you like to make a motion to authorize Steve to execute the agreement?
I would love to. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the township manager to execute the agreement of sale for UPI 42-6-45 Ripon property? Ripon property, thank you, for the open space acquisition.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And passes. Catherine?
Similar vein, while we're talking about open space, what the board has before it is, you may be aware, we talked about this during the budgetary process, that last year, the county commissioners, because of budget constraints, cut funding for land use planning, farmland preservation, open space, and park preservation programs. That last one is the one that we've utilized a number of times from the 2026 budget. So what the action that's before the board this evening is a letter to the commissioners, and this is representative of a letter that many of our other communities are also sending to the commissioners through our managers group. This is something that's been circulating, so East Whiteland doesn't stand alone on this. Just urging them to reinstate and fully fund, especially the park preservation and farmland grant programs for the 2027 budget cycle, as open space is a priority of the commissioners.
This will not affect past grants. That money is
That's right.
given. It's just the future.
Yeah,
The potential for future grants is not going to be there.
yeah, the Preservation Partnership Grant Program has been either closed currently or very, very minimally funded. So unfortunately, for the 2026 year, there hasn't been any funding opportunities that could help with like open space purchases, for example, like we utilized for Ridley Springs.
Any questions for the public? Okay. Peter, you wanna
Sure.
authorize
Thank you, Mr.
the
Chair.
letter?
I'll make a motion to authorize a letter be sent to the Chester County Commissioners requesting reinstituting Preservation Partnership Grant Program for Open Space.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And passes 3-0. Catherine, you're still up?
Okay, I'm still up. Last thing for now. So, there has been a vacancy in the Township Zoning Officer position since May 22nd. And so this is just a simple action. We are in the process of interviewing and hiring to replace this position, but because it is a named official, it needs to be filled on an interim basis. So this is just a motion to temporarily appoint me as the interim zoning officer.
John, have you got a pair of boots for Catherine so she can get out there and start, finding the issues? Okay. Okay.
I have a question. Oh, hi. I'm back again. I know, Scott, you don't hear from me for months, and here I am. Carla Moodry, Malvern, I have to ask why that man John left his zoning job and why it is backdated to May. People have concerns in the community given everything going on with the data center. And Catherine Ricardo is not going to like the next comment, and I'm trying to be kind, but I've had concerns since she joined the township because she came from East Vincent, and she was
Carla, can we keep this on track with
we
pertaining
are
to the
keeping it
zoning
on
issue?
track. Allow me to finish. The zoning change went through in that township that changed the zoning on Penhurst, and now they are fighting a data center under her leadership as manager.
Carla, I'm going to ask you to keep it to the point of appointing Catherine as the temporary zoning officer, not what happened in the past.
What
So
happened
thank you.
in the past is prologue.
All right.
Who's going to supervise her while she's doing this? And why did John leave his job?
All right.
And why is
Carla.
it backdated? I'm not
Yeah,
always user-friendly, and I'm sorry if you don't like that.
Carla, we can't comment on why John is no longer employed by the township. Catherine is more than well qualified for this position. I'm her supervisor. She's been handling it since May 22nd, and that's why we're backdating it to that date. And that's the answer.
Okay, well, maybe you should have told the public in May, with all due respect. That's all I got.
We posted it to the website.
Oh, I'm sorry. You couldn't mention it too? Thank you for whatever.
Peter, would you like to make a motion to appoint Catherine as interim zoning officer?
I would, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Catherine Ricardo as the interim zoning officer backdated to May 22nd, 2026.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And is approved. Guess we've got Larry back on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back from the void. This resolution 24-2026 is a framework of all the Parks and Recreation policies and procedures that I've been implementing for the past 2.5 years that I've been here. I want to make sure that going forward that we have a clear and concise place for everyone to look, not just me, but for you as the board and also the public to refer back to all of our policies in one kind of singular place. And that can also bring us to the future should I no longer be in this position. It's one kind of consolidated place for all of these policies to live as the Parks and Recreation Department is growing and kind of hopefully beginning to see everything that it can be. All these policies and procedures need to live in one central place. So this resolution is that essential kind of framework. There is one policy that is from previous, the naming and dedication policy for our structures in our parks. there are two new policies brought forth to you within this policy for approval. Our nonprofit pavilion rental policy and our summer camp refund policy. Going forward, rather than make a new resolution for each new policy, this can then just be reinstated in the consent agenda for you guys to look at.
Yeah, thank you for this, Larry. It's very forward thinking and putting this together. Good job.
Thank you.
Any questions from the public? Seeing none. Clinton, would you like to make a motion to approve the resolution?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make the motion to approve resolution number 24-2026, Parks and Recreation Policies and Procedures.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And passes. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to motions to award and motion to advertise. Catherine, we're having a plastic bag ban appear again this year.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for the last year, plus the Environmental Advisory Council has been working on an ordinance to regulate single-use plastic, reusable bags, plastic utensils, and expanded and styrofoam, food service products, along with required signage and penalties for violations. And so the EAC has held multiple information sessions to solicit public feedback, collected survey results, directly engaged with the retail community, and has incorporated, to the best of their ability, comments and concerns that were addressed. Some notable ones would be there were some concerns with non-retail use. So this would be like for People's Pantry, for example, to make sure they do hand out their goods with plastic bags. So that's actually been exempted out of this ordinance. It's directly targeted at retail establishments. And so at this time, the EAC's recommended to the board that we move forward with advertising the single-use retail plastic ban for a public hearing.
Any questions from the public? Okay, seeing none. Gentlemen, any other questions you have? Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion, sure. I'd like to make a motion to authorize advertisement of ordinance number 381-2026 for the single-use retail plastic ban.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. And thank you for everyone that has been involved with this starting last summer. Appreciate all the effort. Catherine, we've back on with you.
Next one. Okay.
I'll tell you what, why don't we switch sheets?
So this is also pertaining to the property or peripherally related to the property we were talking about earlier, the Ridley Springs property. So as the board and public, I think, are well aware, there are portions of that property that are situated in other townships that East Whiteland owns. And one of those is a 2-acre parcel in West Whiteland Township. So as part of that, there's a land transfer process that can be engaged with a willing community. And it requires an agreement and an ordinance, and it is physically moving the township boundary. It used to be called annexation, but it's really just a land transfer. And so West Whiteland has indicated a willingness to entertain the East Whiteland's request to transfer those 2 acres into East Whiteland's municipal boundary. And so we're moving on to the next step in that process, where the township solicitors prepared an ordinance and also an agreement. And so with your authorization this evening, that agreement and that ordinance will be sent back to West Whiteland to ask them to execute it and also hold their hearing. And then once they do both of those things, this will be back before you for a public hearing to adopt the ordinance. So we wouldn't be scheduling that hearing this evening, but it would be authorizing it to be sent to West Whiteland for their concurrence.
Any questions?
That sounds great. And to simplify it, this is going to gain the township 2 more acres. We're making the township bigger, everybody.
And a shout out to the Board of Supervisors of West Whiteland, to both Brian Dunn and Taraj, for working with us on this. We appreciate it. Clinton, would you like to make a
Yes.
advertisement
I'd like
authorization?
to advertise and authorize an advertisement of ordinance 382-2026, municipal boundary change agreement with West Whiteland Township, UPI number 41-6-88.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and passes. Thanks. Okay, at this point in time, I guess we're looking for you're gonna, you don't look like Brittany.
No comment. Yeah, so 4C, this is a motion to authorize the advertisement of a public hearing on July 8th for the conditional use application of Chester Valley Golf Club. This is to add 2 paddleball courts or pickleball courts, paddle sport courts in the vicinity of some of their existing racket court facilities near Church Road and Sweetsford Road. So this is just simply to authorize the advertisement. We would not be discussing the substance of the application here this evening.
All right.
Ahead of that conditional use, we know what, I think everybody in this room knows what a hot button pickleball courts are in respect to proximity to residents. Can we go above and beyond reaching out to residents adjacent to the proposed pickleball court so that they are able to be involved with the with the conditional use hearing?
Yep, certainly. We'll, I know there's a residential property directly across the street, obviously, but we'll cast a wider net and make sure that we get everyone who would be
Reasonably impacted, yeah. Good point. And I'll also add that they've now added,
which something that should be pointed out to everyone is that there are going to be lights at the site. Originally, there were not going to be lights during the sub-planning committee, but lights have suddenly appeared.
Sure, and just to clarify, I believe, I could be wrong, I believe the existing courts are lit and these would be as well. And we'll make that abundantly clear within the application materials we post on the website and all that.
Worry about height and so forth and so on, but we can discuss that. We have a question, I think, from the public.
Oh, hi. It's me again, Carla Moodry. I applaud you for casting a wider net to notify people about pickleball, because the weirdest thing about the noise of pickleball is the further out you are, sometimes the louder the noise is. And that's what they discovered with all the nonsense that happened in Easttown when the Upper Main Line Y put the courts in pretty much without telling anybody. And I don't even know if that's out of court or what happened to it, because there were lawyers, it was going to court, and it was getting super messy. And you just can't discount the noise factor. Also, you need to make sure that they have those courts locked when they're closed, because one of the things that happened at the Y that showed up at one of the public meetings about this, one of the Easttown meetings, is that people apparently were playing after hours and maybe weren't quite sober, and that kind of upset the neighbors. So there's all sorts of weirdness that goes in with pickleball. Mostly it's just people enjoying themselves, but noise and hours and sound and light are a real thing. And if those courts are lit, I just ask that maybe consider them having those shields so there's like more downlighting, so that way it doesn't go back out into the neighborhood or up into the sky because that's an environmental thing as well, and that's it.
Charlie, you can mark your calendar, so when we have the conditional use, it'd be great if you came back on and voiced your opinions during that conditional use hearing. I think it would be helpful, so thank you. Any other public questions, comments at this point? Okay. Clinton, would you like to make? Okay.
I'd like to, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to advertise a public hearing on July 8th, 2026 for the conditional use application of 2026-04-CU for Chester Valley Golf Club.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And passes. Next, we're going into a public hearing. Bernadette Kearney is not here with us this evening. Michael Gill from Bernadette's office is, and Catherine will be involved with the public hearing. So I'll turn it over to you folks.
All right, so the first one is going to be the franchise agreement, and Catherine's going to handle that one.
Yeah, so this one's very brief. As the board's aware, the township's been engaged in negotiating the cable franchise agreement with Comcast, and this is for the adoption of that agreement, or to authorize the adoption of that agreement this evening. So I have two exhibits to enter into the record. The first is T1, which is the proof of publication for the meeting this evening, and the second one is T2, which is the ordinance text itself, which just reads, it makes reference, to the agreement itself. And beyond that, I don't have any further comments unless the board has questions.
No questions.
I have no questions.
No question.
Public, do you have any questions? Okay. Okay, can I have a motion to close the first public?
I'll make a
Meeting.
motion to close the public hearing for ordinance number 383-2026 Comcast franchise agreement.
Have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Sure.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance number 383-2026, the Comcast franchise agreement, with Comcast franchise agreement.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And passes.
All right, next on the agenda is an ordinance on proposed, a hearing, on proposed ordinance number 384-2026. This is an ordinance amending the code of the township, specifically Chapter 189, the Vehicles and Traffic Section, Article 3, Parking Regulations, handicap parking and fire lanes, special purpose parking zones, and adopting new procedures for administering special purpose parking zones, including residential handicap parking zones on township roads. We do have 5 exhibits, B1 through B5, as follows. B1 is a May 26, 2026 email and letter to the Daily Local News with the legal notice and proposed ordinance. B2 is an email letter of that same date, May 26th, to the Law Library with a copy of the attested proposed ordinance. B3 is the proof of publication of the ordinance on May 27, 2026. And B4 is the proposed ordinance itself with the attached application for a disability parking permit. B5 will be, assuming the board adopts the ordinance, a copy of the attested enacted ordinance, which we would forward to the Law Library. Those are the exhibits. We would ask that they be made part of this public hearing. Or we will make them part of the public hearing, let me put it that way.
Any comments from the public?
So I don't understand. There we go. Oh, there we go. Carol Rapp, 89 Village Way. Sorry, 89 Village Way. No, my question is, I happen to have a handicapped family member. So is this a change to the ordinance? I'm just trying to understand, because I can tell you, parking is a nightmare for somebody who is wheelchair bound. They can't, and she like uses a ramp to get out of her van, you know what I mean? And so that's why I'm curious what we're doing in this township, because I already go after people who say their bathrooms are handicapped and they absolutely are not. So I'm curious what this is
I
doing.
believe if I'm speaking out of turn, John could correct me. I believe this is an update to make it better and stronger, to make it more user-friendly and useful for the residents, because what we had was inadequate before, which you're probably experiencing. So this will be an update to make it stronger and more enforceable and more user-friendly.
But I mean, is it making so when you draw the lines for a handicapped spot, you always will have one that permits a ramp? Like, that's what I'm just trying to understand, because when you have to use a ramp and you don't have a spot, you have to go park obnoxiously in a parking lot and take up multiple spots just to be able to get out of your vehicle. I'm just telling you, I know what she goes through. So I didn't know if this is addressing this. I mean, I think it's great if it is, because it's a nightmare when you're actually a handicapped person. So I just wasn't understanding what the ordinance was doing.
Zach, do you have a comment, or is that more John?
Because there were no exhibits put up or anything, so I don't know what we're looking at. Oh, you can answer? Great, thank you.
This is not for parking lots or private property shopping centers. This is on township roads only. We had a very small it wasn't even an application process. This spells out how to apply, what the conditions are. And this is, like I said, on-street parking in the township. So it's not anything to do with shopping centers or private property.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Stauffer, 64 Farmstock Road. Just in that, how do we move forward in making things better? I know at Giant that you can't, if you park in the handicapped, you can't, there's a curb there. You can't get out of your car. But I understand this is the ordinance, but how can we move forward to make it better for our citizens who are in wheelchairs? And my other thing, my degrees in special ed, is to, if you want input, to talk to people who are actually in the wheelchairs to find out what it is, or walkers or whatever else, and have them participate in a solution to the problems with handicapped accessibility. Thanks.
I think those are good points, and probably worth us reviewing, putting it down and reviewing the entire ordinance.
The question I would ask, I don't know if Zach or John could answer this, because I don't know the answer, is what leverage do we have over, say, Giant, for example, of expanding this handicap parking spots to be more up to date than they are? Does anybody?
I'll try to address it generically. On private property, as John said, those types of accessible parking spaces are all handled through, I'll say generically, the building code. So the number of spaces is determined by the total number of spaces, for example. Those things are harder to, I'll say, retrofit or require. Generally, those types of requirements are only triggered by new developments or retrofits. Again, I'm speaking very generically. I don't want this to be an authoritative answer. Whereas I think this ordinance is specifically, as John said, just relative to our public roads. So it's kind of difficult to compel people to make upgrades to their property. It's not to say it's impossible. Certainly something we could discuss among staff, but just again, for clarity, private property, commercial properties, et cetera, are handled through the building code process generally when new improvements are proposed.
Thank you, Zach. That answers my question.
I guess my question is with the Americans with Disabilities Acts, I mean, there are rules and regulations, and if they're not abiding by those rules and regulations, do we as a township have any ability to hold them accountable?
Yeah, I don't know what all of our powers are relative to that. I think that's something we should discuss among staff, maybe with our legal counsel. I don't think it's directly relevant to the ordinance tonight, if that's the
No,
question.
it's not, but it's,
But certainly something we could try to have a better understanding of and
yeah.
see
That'd
what
be
we can do
awesome.
going
I
forward.
think that'd be awesome. Thank
Sure,
you.
yeah, great.
Okay. So
Those are the exhibits, including the draft ordinance. Having heard public comment, it would be appropriate to take action on the proposed ordinance. Close the hearing
we
and
need
take
to
action.
close the hearing first.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance number 384-2026 for the handicap parking ordinance.
And would you like to make a motion for the ordinance? Okay.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing is closed.
Now it would be
Now we-
appropriate to take action on the proposed ordinance.
Sure. Thank you. We'd like to take action on the ordinance 384-2026 for the handicap parking ordinance.
You need to suggest what that action would be. So are you moving to adopt the ordinance?
Oh, excuse me, moving to adopt ordinance 384-2026 for the handicap parking ordinance.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. And passes. Zach, if you can.
Sure. Yeah, the next
Information on the planning and development.
Sure. Yeah, the next two items here are simply extensions of time for the board to render a decision. The first is for the Spark Car Wash at the corner of Route 29 and Sweetsford Road. This is a preliminary final plan. They've requested an extension that would carry it through August 31st. And the second, I'll just hit at the same time. This is an extension for the Penn State Great Valley parking reduction project. It's an amended final plan, and they've offered an extension until September 30th for the board to make a decision. So separate motions, just figured I'd cover them at the same time.
Here, you want to take a stab at both?
We'll do one at a time. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to consider an extension of time to render a decision for the Spark Car Wash 2026-02-LD preliminary final plan until August 31st, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
I'd like to make another motion to consider an extension of time to render a decision for the Penn State Great Valley Parking Reclamation 2024-08-LD amended final plan until September 30th, 2026.
And I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And passes. And moving on, I guess Steve will be leading us through the Bishop Tube redevelopment discussion of consent decree.
Yeah, thank you. Excuse me, I'm just going to introduce it, we have representatives of Constitution Drive Partners here this evening. And recently, most folks are aware of that the DEP entered into a draft consent decree with the responsible parties as well as Constitution Drive Partners. And there are some differences in the consent decree as compared to the conditions of plan approval that the township issued a number of years ago. And so we've asked the representatives, one notably being Mr. Ed Campbell, the attorney for Constitution Drive Partners, here to explain what his client's intent is moving forward with the plan.
Is that better? Thank you. My name is Edmund Campbell, and I represent Constitution Drive Partners. In 2021, if my recollection is correct, the Board of Supervisors approved a land development plan for an 86-unit townhouse development on the Constitution Drive Partners property, which is on Mayland Road. That approval contained a series of conditions primarily related to what was anticipated at that time to be the remediation plan for the site. That remediation plan was challenged. And for the last 5 years, there's been an ongoing process with DEP and the other PRPs to determine what the appropriate remediation is going to be. There was a proposed remediation, right? A statement of decision that was proposed and published by DEP, and DEP accepted public comment for a 60-day period, which ended in the middle of May. It's my understanding, not my understanding, the law will require DEP to respond in whatever shape, fashion, or form that they intend to respond to those comments, and they'll be incorporated in the statement of decision and then submitted to the court for review and approval as part of a consent decree. And when that consent decree is approved, then all the parties are bound by that consent decree. It's given the effect of the force of law as an order from the court. What that will require, and one of the reasons we're here, is we have some, in recognition and acknowledgement that the conditions attendant to the original approval are going to change because the means and methods of the remediation that were anticipated in 2021 have changed, that we need an application to amend the approval to reflect what DEP and the court approves for remediation. And for that purpose, we have asked on several occasions to extend the application for our amendment to the preliminary approval plan. I couldn't be here in May. I had another conflict, but I believe the board took action on that application back in May. And Bernadette Kearney contacted me and asked me to appear here tonight to basically explain where we are in the status and where we are in that process. The consent decree puts aside, creates a fund of just under $9 million with an additional supplemental fund of about $2.5 million to fund the remediation. The remediation is an in situ remediation, meaning that the contaminated material is not to be removed from the property. It's going to be treated and dealt with on site. And that is different than the plan that we originally proposed, which would be to remove the material. DEP did not approve that. The approved remediation is on-site remediation, basically treating the contamination on site. And what I anticipate is when the consent decree is approved, we will be back in front of you and submit the details of that approved consent decree and outline how we believe that accomplishes the goal, the same goals that I believe were anticipated or attempted to be achieved as part of the conditions opposed to the original approval. And so I think that our request was for an extension or to grant the township an extension until August 28th. Candidly, since we know the court's not likely to approve the consent decree until September or October, if I can make the request, I think it's probably appropriate to extend it to the end of the year, December 31st at a minimum. That would give us time to, when the consent decree is approved, assuming it's approved, to submit to the township more engineering details so the township's experts and engineers can review it and advise the township on what appropriate conditions might be attached as amendments to the prior approval. This is a third-party agency approval. It's very common in a land development application to condition an approval on what is in the purview of a secondary agency, whether it's DEP or PennDOT or some other third-party agency. And so when the township originally approved the plan, the conditions are all intimately related to what that third-party agency approval was anticipated to be. And so because that form of remediation was challenged and changed, we're going to need to change those conditions. Some of them are simple. For example, you have some conditions which reference compliance with Act 2. Well, we're not under Act 2 now. We're going to need to remediate the site consistent with the statement of decision. That's a simple example. There's another condition which requires us to provide access to the PRPs to the site and for monitoring wells. Well, my client is the party that's remediating it. There's no problem with the township having access. There's no problem with the DEP obviously having access, but it presumed that parties would have access that no longer need access. So lots of those changes in your conditions, I think, are administrative and minor, and some are going to be more substantive, and you're going to need the benefit of your township engineer and your township environmental consultants to evaluate them. That's the update. I'm happy to take questions from you, and I'm sure the public has questions or comments as well.
And I have no questions at this time.
One short question, in terms of the changes, how much lead time are you going to give us if we get granted extension till the end of the year to review the
Yeah, so-
decree, the decree as it changes?
Yeah, the decree and supplemental material. How much time do you want? I think 60 days. Typically, it would be a 30-day window, right? But under these circumstances, 60 days, 90 days? I mean, what do you?
I'll look to staff as far as what would be appropriate for you and our experts to review.
More is always better. I would say at least 60 days, if possible. We'll have our environmental consultants have always been very efficient and effective, but the more time you can give us, the better.
I don't think there's a need for more than 60 days, but we've granted the township extensions. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I would suggest 60 days.
Okay.
You're saying 60 days from,
What I'm
and I guess the question would
what I'm
be-
suggesting is, I'm asking for, what I'm suggesting is the township grant an extension on the application until the end of the year. But I'm also suggesting that before you take action on it, we would submit to you the proposed changes to the conditions with the environmental reports backing it up for a period of at least 60 days before you would take action on it.
then I'd like to amend my request.
Okay.
Being that it would be a amended preliminary plan, I assume? Is
Yes.
that- I guess we have to talk process a little bit, but being that it would need to go to the planning commission, and prior to it going to the planning commission, I would like our environmental consultants to have a period of time to review it. At least 2 stops of the board. We're probably more in like the 90-120 stage, which probably means we need an extension to be on the agenda next month, and we need plans shortly thereafter. If that makes sense. Calendar math is hard to do in your head, but
I understand what you're saying. So if
Even
you're
the-
right, if the extension is through the end of the year, you're going to want, and we won't have that as a practical matter. So maybe the extension should be for the first quarter of next year. Because the consent decree won't be entered until September at the earliest, possibly October.
then we should have a follow-up discussion, but I think that end of the year timeline would come up very quickly, and I think we should allot all of ourselves, including the public, a little more time with the plan.
Sure. So what if the extension was until the end of the first quarter of 2027?
It's up to the board to consider
Yeah.
the extension, of course, and we would need something in writing, but if you'd like to.
I would
offer that,
supplement it in writing.
we
but I
could
think-
put it on a future agenda.
Yeah.
What's the date for what?
Let's say March 31st,
Yeah,
2027.
For the extension, you're
the
not saying
extension.
the submission, but for the extension.
correct.
Yeah.
It seems like a good round number. And I'd like to know, I think, around the time that the decisions are made, when the submission would be anticipated, so we could give ourselves and others a heads up.
I'll keep Mr. Gill or Ms. Kearney in the loop on anything that happens on the court. Thank you.
I was trying to keep silent. In my name. I should point out that, though not representing the applicant in any way, shape, or form, I did at a prior law firm that I was affiliated with have very tangential connection to this property, but not anything having to do with the project or the township's review of the project. So if you could coordinate your activities with Ms. Kearney, I would
Sure.
very much appreciate that.
I don't have a recollection of you working on this project at all. I know.
You wouldn't have. It was very tangential.
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
So we'll be in touch on more specific dates, and we'll provide an update to the board, and to the extent that we have firm information, we'll share with the public as well. But that sounds like it's a few months off at this point.
Yes. I'll retreat.
Thank you, Ed. At this time, for 3 minutes, if you have any comments, please come forward for questions.
Didn't realize it was going to end so soon.
Yes. Excuse me, just a moment.
Pertaining to the Bishop too.
It didn't come so soon.
Yep. Okay, sorry.
It's Scott, just to let you know, I do have the public, since sometimes the public comment period is a little more prolonged. I do have a timer here to the extent that you want to employ it.
Oh, you wouldn't do that to me, would you? Deborah
That's
Mobile,
certainly
42 Village Way. Okay. I would like to address my concerns to the board. Not to you, Mr. Campbell. You've had enough of our time. I am profoundly disappointed in your response to the DEP concerning the consent decree. I may be wrong, but what I read, and stop me if I'm wrong, because I got a whole thing written about this. I basically read a comment letter that consisted of all of our comments attached to it. And that was your comment, okay? I was shocked that I didn't see comments from your legal team, comments from your engineers, and your environmental consultants. I was shocked that the supervisors didn't have time to include any input or questions. You know, if there's something that I missed in the stuff that was online, please let me know that. Because the questions that we're having tonight are questions that should have been addressed before the deadline back on May 16th. Now, Mr. Campbell's already telling us that they're backing out of our earlier agreement. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an environmental engineer. I am just a retired school teacher who has lived at 42 Village Way for 45 years. I am just looking at I'm just a woman looking for support from my community. And right now, I'm really feeling that it's lacking.
Let me just jump in and say, Deb, I'll have to take a look at what we sent to the DEP, but we did have comments from our consultant. You know, sitting here, I'm drawing a bit of a blank, but we tried to include what we heard the public say, we heard the board say, and comments from our consultant. But I'll have to go back and look at the document.
Gonna be okay? Yeah. Do you want to sit?
No,
Okay.
no, no,
Sure?
this is fine.
Okay.
Thanks. Sarah Caspar. Where do I live? Atwater. Your comments I read, I thought that they were reasonable comments. I have no complaint about that. The problem is not the comments. The problems is, number one, the consent decree, period. It's not a good one. I have been driving up and down here to see if anything's happening. I saw one person go in for doing groundwater, but the groundwater assessment needs to be evolved because PFAS, which is the major problem there, goes anywhere. And unless you have the tools to really determine where it's going and then how to stop it. And that's the big problem. And it's probably a huge problem for PADAP because things that were happening once upon a time, research, they're not happening. And so it's harder and harder to find solutions. But I think you have to all acknowledge these are the problems. And unless they can be remediated, nobody can be there because it's not safe. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm John McElwychuk. I'm the former Parks and Recreation Director for Chester County for 11 years. And Steve and I think, have had some dealings up in Honeybrook area and worked on the Chester Valley Trail, obviously, with your parking lot. But I'm here not as a former county parks director, but relating some of my own
Where do you, where do you reside now, sir?
I'm sorry?
Where do you reside now?
I reside in West Whiteland. My concern is, and I told Supervisor Rankin this several years ago at the last hearing, that you need to follow the timeline for these types of projects. We're not talking about a remediation that's going to take 2 years and that the development can somehow magically proceed in 2028 or 29. I would encourage you to look at 2 sites that are relatively close, similar contaminations. In Montgomery County, Worcester Township, the Daystrom Transacoil site began dumping TCEs and PCEs on their back lot many years ago. That site is now an EPA Superfund site. They are remediating that with aeration and I believe reverse osmosis UV treatment. There's another site here in Chester County. I believe it is in the western corner of West County Township. It's called the Dick Lagoon site. This was a gentleman, and I use that term rather generously, who allowed a large retention basin to let tanker trucks show up with these volatile organics and open their petcock and just leave them run for a half hour and dump thousands of gallons into the woodlands northwest of Chester County's Chambers Lake, where I was, of course, the Parks Director for Hibernia County Park. These sites, and EPA officials have told me this, they take 35 to 50 years to remediate. We're not talking a decade here. We're talking almost a half a century. And if this board considers allowing residential development in the proximity to this plume, unless I'm wrong, unless this site is so well contained, but by gosh, it is very tight. It's not like Dick Lagoon. It's not 20 acres. You're perpetuating a perpetual love canal, the sequel. Think about that. So, and if you have my information, thank you very much.
Sorry. My name's Kate Stauffer. I live 64 Fawnstock Road, and I'm going to say it again for anybody who might be new to all this, that at the end of the cul-de-sac, there was a zoning sign on Village Way. And if Larry Stauffer did not see that sign, there would be 200 houses on 13 toxic acres. What we found out is that the DEP gave the developer a covenant not to sue. They all knew it was toxic. And here we are still. Why do we have to fight so hard for this? We have a constitutional right to clean air, clean water, and a clean environment. My daughter's a survivor of brain tumors, brain cancer. My neighborhood is known as Cancer Alley. I didn't know that when we moved in. We're good for the moment. There's still people getting sick, though. And we're playing with this. One of my neighbors went down to talk to somebody who was taking water out of Valley Creek, Little Valley Creek, at the cul-de-sac from the DEP. And the conversation went, what's your assessment? Like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Testing the water, blah, 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 whatever. And to your point, his comment was, when asked how long this might take, 10, 15 years before we even know whether we can clean it up and it would be cleaned. And it's not just us, it's different in Easttown. Little Valley Creek is an exceptional value creek that goes into Valley Creek, that goes into the Schuylkill River, that goes into the Delaware River. We're playing with fire. Larry's thought was, and I don't know, I'm not with everything that's being said about how it might be cleaned up, I don't think the DEP knows how to clean it up, and that's part of it. Natural attenuation, possibly, leave it alone. I was going to say we're getting weary, but we're getting more and more angry. This is my neighborhood. These are my friends and my family. Larry's not with us anymore, but his spirit still drives us.
Sorry about that. Don't mean for that to be in your way. Maya Van Rossum, the Delaware Riverkeeper, leader of the Delaware Riverkeeper Network, and proud member of the Clean and Green Bishop Tube Coalition. So first off, I really want to say I'm very disappointed that your attorney's not here. And I do think that your attorney, her representation for you, her guidance to you on the consent decree was woefully inadequate. The fact that you did not even know who was the decision maker for the consent decree was shocking. The fact that your comments that went in on the due date continued to ask questions. I got on, I told you, it was not a time to ask questions. It was a time for you to take a position on the consent decree. Your attorney did not give you good information about what was happening and how you should interact with the public process around this consent decree. So I want you to know that.
Is this a question or a criticism?
This is a criticism. That is a
We're open to
100%
questions. We're not open to criticism. No,
That's right.
no
No, you
personal attacks,
must
thanks.
be open to criticism. No, you don't get to dictate. You don't get to dictate my public comment. It's perfectly appropriate for me to share with you that you had inadequate representation, and that is one of the reasons why you have such concern being expressed about the comment that was submitted. So I appreciate you may not want to hear it, but that's the reality. And it's important for you to hear it because you need to know and you need to be paying attention to what your legal counsel is doing. Where is she tonight? Alexa? It does matter because there are a lot of very serious, significant legal issues that are on the agenda, including this. You don't have to answer the question, but I can ask it, and you can place it on the record.
Our solicitor is here this evening. Bernadette is not here, and I don't see how that's relevant.
You don't have to see how it's relevant, but it's important for us to place it on the record. I feel it's important to place it on the record, so I'm doing so. The other thing that's important for you to remember, while there was conversation from CDP about the current consent decree process and the fact that it's before the court and that there may be, we actually don't believe that it is likely that the consent decree is going to be approved, considering how woefully inadequate it was and what a tremendous giveaway it was to the responsible parties, which we outlined in very detailed, in a very detailed way in the comments from the Delaware Riverkeeper Network and from Green Amendments for the Generation. So I would not suppose that it's going to be approved. But the one thing that the CDP attorney failed to remind you of is that there is actually another very serious and significant court decision that has taken place with regards to this development project. You might recall, you may not recall, but I will, because you may not have been on the board, you weren't on the board, so go back and look. I'll give you the case. We've certainly reminded you in our comment that when the preliminary approval, when the approval was given by the board of the preliminary land development application, there were significant conditions that were laid out, right? The CDP attorney sort of referenced them in passing. Well, the Delaware Riverkeeper Network challenged that approval before the Court of Common Pleas. And when the Court of Common Pleas upheld the township's decision rather than grant our legal challenge, when the court upheld that, they relied upon those conditions. Your attorney went to court, CDP went to court, DEP went to court, and lifted up those very stringent conditions time and time again and said, these are protective. The township made sure the community would be protected. And so when the court rendered the decision to uphold the township's approval, the court said, quote, the township has imposed conditions that the applicant must meet in order to obtain final land development approval. So it is not such a simple thing for, as CDP suggests, for you to now come back and change those conditions. Because if you do, it flies in the face of what you told the Court of Common Pleas. It flies in the face of what you promised this community. It is wrong. It is a betrayal of your responsibility and what you said in that decision making. You must not change those conditions. They were your decision at the time. A court relied upon them. The people relied upon them. That was your promise to this community that they would be protected. You should uphold them. You should not consider changing them.
Hello, Peggy Miros, 27 Fonstock Road, and I've been a resident since 1978. I'm looking at the decal up there and thinking, wow, how things have changed. I'm just going to say something very simple. It's a question. It's a question to you, Mr. Campbell. Why would this entity, CDC, and this developer want to build family housing on what we know is toxic land with forever chemicals? I don't understand the thinking on that. Is there a real need for 78 houses to be built there? I don't think so. So again, my question is why? I cannot say who the person was that told me this. There was confidentiality. But one of the lawyers that did work with one of the entities that had been part of the purchase of this land said they had never seen, this is an environmental lawyer, such toxic land on the sites that he had been party to in other suits. Never seen such bad toxic waste. Well, regardless then. Okay, so the another thing, and I cannot name the person, I'll have to keep confidentiality, but there was a former supervisor who admitted that they did not know what they were dealing with when they agreed to this, how many years ago. After the fact, they recognized that they had made a mistake and they should not have approved this. This was one of your people. I'll leave it at that. But my question still remains, why would you want to put family housing on toxic land?
Okay, Donna.
I'm back. Carla Zambelli, Moudry, Malvern. I haven't spoken about Bishop Tube in a long time. And as everyone recalls, I was the named resident in the slap suit with the Delaware Riverkeeper Network and Maya, and everyone was vindicated. I just like to put that out there. My thing with this is I don't understand a lot of the stuff in that consent decree because it seems counterintuitive to me. But I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an environmentalist. I just will never understand how anyone can consider doing anything on this site until it is 100% remediated. And the thing is, you guys said something about maybe the remediation might be keeping the stuff on site. TCE and some of those chemicals, I believe they're the term non-aqueous, which means they come up through cement, they're in the air, they travel in the water, and as a 15-year breast cancer survivor now, and I was much further down the food chain when this all started, I just still hope for a pause or a change of plan because it's just not good. And I don't see how anybody can do anything until this site is 100% cleaned up. That's it. I won't change the world on this. That's just my opinion, and I know the developer doesn't like my opinions, but the First Amendment still allows it, and I thank you for your time.
Rita Van Rossum. I live at Rita Van Rossum. I live at 1011 King Road, Malvern. I guess I was here in an earlier meeting and I guess they frequently speak, came up and asked about what they called a clean and green amendment that had been passed in, I believe they said Euclid Township. And I guess I haven't really been able to find any information about that, but it sounded like a really good kind of, what's the word, just way of proceeding, which was to have an ordinance saying that before you can do any development on a site, it has to be cleaned up. You cannot buy it, start getting land development plans in place when the place hasn't even been cleaned up. And I think Scott Lambert, you said something that you would look into this, and I guess the resident who brought it up said, well, I've brought this up a couple times already. Anyway, I don't know much about it, but it sounded like a really good idea for us to have something like that on the books to prevent issues like this from coming up, because our township is pretty industrial, and there's probably plenty of sites that are polluted where people would like to do stuff, but maybe they shouldn't be allowed to until they get it completely cleaned up. Anyway, there you go. Thanks.
Just to address your comment, this was brought up by one of our STPs, Barbara, and it is in the process of being adopted into a new ordinance. And That's thanks to Barb.
Is there a time frame with that revision?
If I may just jump, Barbara Arnold, 31 Fonstock Road. Since we're talking about it, I was going to bring it up public comments, but the last time we talked about it, I had, Scott asked if it could be enacted in possibly 90 days, and Zach felt like June would be a reasonable timeline. And this was at least a couple months ago. So that's where it stood the last time it was mentioned here.
Much ado for not a very good update. I've been out of the office for a few weeks. That's not an excuse, but I will try to use it as best I can. I'm familiar with the ad, or the ordinance. I'm familiar with the legal proceedings surrounding it. I understand that it's a valid approach. If the board is inclined to adopt something like that here locally, again, I think the same timeline stands. So being June 10th, I think by the September meeting, we could have something that's in a position to be acted upon, and it would be on the board then to decide at that meeting. But we could prepare an ordinance amendment document that reflects that same requirement.
Again, having to go through planning commission and other committees, so September seems to be.
Certainly. Again, I've heard varying opinions on whether that is, the best approach relative to development financing, things like that. And putting that aside, it could be prepared and put in a position to be acted upon in September.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? If not, we'll close it. And
Maya Van Rossum, the Delaware Riverkeeper. On the Euclid Township ordinance, the truth is, our coalition has brought this before you like 3 years ago. So it's been a long time in the offing. The legal opinion that upheld it is also years old. We brought that forth as soon as that legal opinion was secured. So with all due respect, I would ask you to fast track this. If you do have questions, let us know what they are right away, because we can answer them like that. It's a good approach. It's a solid approach. Has been upheld in Euclid. It would make a difference here in East Whiteland. Please prioritize it. Get it done in the 90 days. Thank you.
okay. Thank you for comments. And so at this point in time, we will, Ed, you have a comment?
No, just that I would renew the request on the extension to 331, subject to confirming that in writing to the township with the proviso that we get you the proposed amendments 90 days in advance.
I think that's the plan. Zach? Still good with that?
Yeah, so I guess we would
Everything
need a
you've heard?
motion to accept it, subject to being provided in writing. But we don't have, the extension does need to be offered in writing, but if they're offering it formally here, we could put it on the next month's agenda.
All right. All right. Fair enough. Okay, thank you. Moving on to zoning and code enforcement, Catherine.
Thank you. Yeah, Zach and I are going to split these zoning hearing board applications. And can I suggest, because the second one, the ZHB 2026-03, the applicant's not here and it's probably simpler, and I think there is the applicant here for the other one, if I could take this one out of order first. Okay. Very simple. This is a proposed addition to a residential property. The dimensional relief that's requested is encroachment into the front yard setback for this property. Fairly minimal encroachment into that, but that'll be going to the zoning hearing board for a hearing on June 22nd. So the consideration is just if the board wants to send the township solicitor or take a position on this one.
Personally, I think the zoning hearing board's more competent to handle this one.
Agree.
Okay, yes, so then no actions needed on that one. So I'll turn it back over to Zach then on the next one.
Sure. So this is a an older zoning hearing board application that sort of went on hold for a few years. This is for a proposal to convert the existing Sonesta Suites extended stay hotel into a multifamily residential complex. This is the hotel at 20 Moorhall Road, so at the corner of Route 30 and Route 29. I believe the applicant's attorney is here to speak to maybe I'll say at a high level, the request. And if the board has any questions, if there's anything you'd like displayed on the screen relative to the application materials, I'm happy to do so.
That's great. Thanks, Mr. Berner. Gina Gerber, I'm here on behalf of the applicant this evening. As Mr. Berner mentioned, this is a bit of an older application. Some of you may recall. This is a former Sonesta Street Suites. It's no longer a Sonesta Suites. It's being operated by my client at this point in time under a no brand. It's a property that is very ripe for an upgrade. I know in the past, this particular hotel has posed some problems for the township in terms of security and usage. It is a property that has a lot of opportunity here. We just need to be able to use it for something that is viable in the township. If you've tracked its usage over the years, you know that it's not exactly a popular place to inhabit at this point in time. And my client is very interested in converting this property because we think that this is going to be a really great use for this particular property without demolishing and starting over. So what they are proposing is converting the existing hotel into multifamily residences. This is 120 units. It's 51 bedroom, 72 bedroom. And in working with the applicant, I am joined this evening by Donnie Flora, who is the Vice President of Investments for PAG Company. And so he wanted to talk to you all a little bit about their overall plan for this property and why they think it would work. But before I hand it over to Donnie to just give you a quick overview, I just wanted to let you know what they are doing there under your workforce housing is 100% workforce housing units. So what they were initially proposing before your workforce housing ordinance went into effect was effectively workforce housing, or what they would call Class B apartments. So they are apartments that are meant for the working class person. They don't attract a ton of families or children, but they do operate on the multifamily level. It has very low parking demand, which is part of the variances that we are asking for. Your ordinance would require 2 parking spaces for every unit. They've found in their experience that the demand is just not there for that. So they do have 196 parking spaces available on site. They would be asking for a variance of a deviation of approximately 76 spaces. They have 76 spaces. So your ordinance would require for the uses on this site, which includes a medical office building and 120 multifamily units, your ordinance would require 272 parking spaces. They are proposing 196. Now, they have gone ahead and obviously gotten some third-party consultants involved. There is a full parking analysis that was submitted recently. I don't know if you all have had an opportunity to review that parking analysis, but effectively what it does is compare what your ordinance require versus what this company's other properties throughout the United States have seen in terms of an actual on-site parking demand for this type of a facility, as well as comparing the industry standard ITE parking requirements for a medical office building and for an apartment use. And so what that study has revealed is, in effect, this site with its medical office building existing use, as well as what we're proposing in terms of multifamily, would really only need 157 parking spaces. And what we see on site is 196. So we believe that this is actually going to end up being a surplus in terms of actual usage and demand on site. And like I said, that is based on both the ITE industry standard parking requirements for these uses, as well as what my client is seeing on the ground at their multiple sites throughout the United States. The other variance request that is within this application is for the use itself. So this property is in the OBPS district. The multifamily use is not permitted in that particular district. So this would be a use variance. As I indicated, I think that this use makes total sense in terms of rehabilitating and utilizing what's actually on the ground there, bringing it up to code, making some major improvements on the site, but finding a use that actually works on this site without having to demolish and start over. So in effect, it's more of a green initiative to be able to use what's already there and repurpose it to get it back on the tax rolls and make it a viable use in the township again. So if you all will allow, we've just got like a quick 10-minute presentation so you can get a better idea of exactly what's.
I'm gonna ask you questions first, Gene.
Yes, Mr. Fixler.
The, this all sounds great as it did however many years ago, but you focused in on the sticking point, which is the parking. And that's the sticking point with at least me, because I don't want those underparked development affecting adjacent businesses.
Yep.
So
here's
that is our genuine concern, that the adjacent buildings aren't affected by residents utilizing whatever's available because there's not enough on-site parking.
So there has
And
been
I understand your studies and they all sound great, but that is the rub with this site.
a couple of developments since this application was discussed a couple of years ago. The client is under agreement for one of the units in the condominium association that is part of this particular property. They are also the owner of the third unit at this point in time. So the intention with this application is that my client is going to own all of the units that comprise the condominium association. That bylaws that are in effect for that condominium association do contemplate and permit shared parking throughout the site. So what you have right now is a lovely little complementary parking scenario. You have 32 spaces surrounding the medical office building condominium, and then you have the additional 164 spaces, I believe, around the multifamily. The medical office building is something that's used, the parking demand is during the daytime hours, regular office hours. The additional parking around the medical office building can certainly be used to help with the parking for the multifamily use during off hours and in the evening hours, which is going to be more the peak demand for the multifamily use. And as I've indicated, they've developed these particular multifamily conversion product throughout the United States. And I think what you'll see in Donnie's presentation is the demand at their other operating sites is way below what the ordinance requires. And in fact, it's even below what the ITE standard is for this. Now, we are proposing to comply with the ITE standard, but we anticipate that this parking demand is going to be way below what is anticipated. And if I may just call on your recollection, there was a document that was circulated previously, conditions of approval. And I would resubmit that for the board's review. I don't know if you all have copies of that in front of you, but those conditions of approval, we're not proposing to change in any way. The board and the board's solicitor back in 2023, when this document was originally produced, there are conditions in there requiring that there be parking permits issued. They require that there not be any parking on adjacent properties or on adjacent roadways. I mean, this is all, those conditions were drafted with this in mind to make sure that what your concern is would not be a problem going forward. So, and like I said, the applicant is still very much interested in abiding by those conditions. If the board is interested in seeing any revisions to those, we're all ears. But I think, you know, those were very well vetted a couple of years ago, and we're still okay with all of those at this point. So
I'll add the same comment that Peter had in terms of back 3 years ago was the parking issue. I know in the sub-planning committee, there was the study presented, and the overflow would be using parking places from the diagnostic medical building. Zach, I know you weren't here at that point in time, but has anyone had the opportunity to kind of look at this study and compare it to anything else that we might have in the township to see if the numbers seem to make sense or not.
Yeah, having compared it to existing, like other buildings, like the parking supply, that's a good question. I know when the parking study was initially submitted, we did have our traffic consultant look at it and they agreed with the assumptions and the methodology. They didn't opine on truly the parking supply relative to this, let's say, this specific residential type as compared to, say, another market rate or, some other type of apartment. I have gone through it. I've kind of got like a little bit of a breakdown on like how the various parking standards compare, but I have not compared it to other existing apartments in the township.
Gene, I just had a quick question. When looking at the current use, right, occupancy, how many bedrooms, how many total units are there currently?
So there are 120 hotel rooms.
Hotel room, but
Right
they
now.
are suites, right? So
They are suites.
so
That's
they're
like an extended stay.
similar structure. You're basically updating everything and redesigning. You're not creating
That's correct.
more units, additional, right? So it's similar
Mhm.
residential use, just updating, new, rebranding, refreshing, providing, I guess, workforce housing type, as
Right.
opposed to transient, more short-term hotel usage.
Right.
Okay.
And the idea ideally would be able to, there are, some residents that are there, they've been there for quite some time. The idea would be able to convert them from an extended stay experience into a multifamily housing experience, assuming they can pass the necessary guidelines for rental. But I mean, I think PEG is very interested in being able to retain some of those residents to the extent that they can.
Okay.
Which brings up another question, which I think Scott had asked during the subcommittee meeting, which is, is that possible? And I think my client's answer is yes, but there are one of the conditions that we had previously discussed in those conditions of approval. If the zoning hearing board were to grant the relief that we're seeking, it requires the hotel to effectively cease operations during the renovation. That might be something you all might want to revisit, only because I think what I'm hearing my client say is that they can actually do this as a phased renovation, so that those folks that may be staying in one of the extended stay hotel rooms may be able to convert through to another multifamily unit elsewhere on the property, while portions of the property are still operating as a hotel and portions are then converting into multifamily. I think they've done it. Yeah, they've done it at other properties. It's worked fairly seamlessly, to be honest, and that would actually encourage some of the folks that are there now to be able to stay in residence, but it would be in a basically totally renovated, brand new apartment.
And what, I mean, looking at, the numbers of the, workforce housing, what is the difference, I guess, between where workforce housing costs are versus an individual unit at an extended stay? Just to get an idea of maybe individuals who, that maybe, it's a great in theory that they could just transition, but what is that is that even a possibility for those individuals?
Yeah, as of today, the current daily rate for the hotels is somewhere between $100 and $150 per night.
Okay.
For a residential property, the rent for the entire month would be between $1,700 and $2,200.
Okay.
So it'd be a significant decrease for those that are on site, and that would transition from the extended stay or guest to residential tenant. And I have the presentation. I don't know how to share.
Yeah, there we go. That's beautiful. Thank you.
I think Gina's done a great job so far, so this will all just be a review of what she said. My name's Donnie Flora. I'm with PEG Companies. You want to go to the next slide? PEG was founded in 2003 and is a vertically integrated real estate investment firm specializing in development, acquisitions, and operations of multifamily build-for-rent and hospitality assets. We have over a 20-year track record of strong, consistent performance for institutional and private wealth clients. and manage 2.1 billion in assets in 30 states and Canadian provinces. As of today, we have over 7,300 residential units that we currently manage. Go to the next slide. We want to talk through the conversion strategy from the extended stay hotel. What you see here is a property that we've converted in DFW or Dallas. Pre-renovation photos above and post-renovation below. Next slide. So why convert extended stay hotels? Extended stay hotels are built like apartments and accommodate travelers who are interested in staying in a desired location for 30+ days. These older extended stay hotels were built before 1995, are typically garden style over large sites and feature larger units than a typical hotel, full cooktops, large refrigerators, eating spaces and study areas, as well as shared laundry facilities. They also include outdoor amenity space, sports courts, pools, barbecue areas, and a gatehouse with areas for fitness, community gathering, and relaxation. These older extended stay properties are inefficient to operate as hotels and have essentially become obsolete. As these hotel properties become more obsolete, they're typically downflagged from more prestigious brands to more economy brands. This downflagging is also marked by a decline in nightly rates, resulting in a degradation of operations, maintenance, and quality of guests over time. PEG has successfully breathed new life into over a dozen of these downflagged properties, while adding quality missing middle housing and workforce housing to communities all over the U.S. I'm going to go to the next slide. Shown here are two recent conversions that we've completed. On top is our property in Kansas City, and on bottom is a property that we have in downtown Seattle. So next slide. Talking specifics on our property in Kansas City, this is located in Overland Park. Consists of 108 two-bedroom units that are 950 square feet each. Amenities on site include a pool, basketball court, and fitness center. The property is located in an office park, similar to what we see here in Malvern. And the upgrades and renovations that we completed include new flooring, updated kitchens, washer dryer installations, clubhouse renovations, and full amenity refreshes. You see the before pictures above and the after pictures below. Go next slide. Another property that we've converted recently is in Buffalo, New York. This property is 112 units, located across from a University of Buffalo, where there are 31,500 students in enrollment there. The renovations for this project included something similar with new flooring, updated kitchens, washer dryer installations, clubhouse renovations, and a full amenity refresh. Again, you can see renovations before and post renovation below. Go to the next slide. This is our proposal for the property located in 20 South Moore Hall Road, pictured here. And go to the next slide. You see a map of where the property is located. It's located next to the Vanguard facility and across from Wegmans and Target. This property consists of 120 units located there at 20 South Moore Hall Road. It was built in 1991 and renovated in 2014. At the time of acquisition in 2022, the property had been downflagged multiple times and was operating as a budget Sonesta branded hotel. With the brand looking to offload the aging property, the property was undermanaged and not well maintained. Physical attributes of the property make it inefficient to operate as a hotel and therefore an unattractive hotel investment. Those same attributes which render this property obsolete and make it an ideal multifamily property. Our plan would be to convert all 120 units into workforce housing, which contain 50 one-bedroom units and 70 two-bedroom units, with rental ranges between $1,700 and $2,200. At those rates, 100% of the proposed units would be offered at rates at or below 80% of AMI, and will therefore qualify as workforce housing as defined in the East Whiteland Workforce Housing Ordinance. As you can see, the blended percentage of AMI at those rental rates are 77.5%. Go to the next slide. The proposed renovations for this project are similar to the ones we've done at other locations, including an in-unit washer dryer, adding a full-size oven, painting all the interiors and exteriors of the property, new LVP flooring, baseboards, window coverings, plumbing fixes, light fixtures, and countertops. We will also address deferred maintenance throughout the property, including replacing failing stair treads and other wood rot across the exterior of the property. Included in the renovation will also be a full amenity space refresh, including a fitness facility, mailboxes, and Amazon lockers for the property. Correct. Well, so they'll be there during normal business hours, but there would be one full-time property manager on site and one full-time maintenance manager on site, like you would see at a typical apartment complex.
And if I remember correctly, I believe that is actually part of the proposed conditions as well.
So we've already completed some select renovations on units of the property. You can see a pre-renovated unit above and a post-renovated unit below. We go to the next slide. We wanted to heavily talk through parking, knowing that that's a concern here tonight. The following schedule outlines the East Whiteland's parking requirements for the proposed use as compared to the recommendations established by the ITE and the utilization that we've seen across our portfolio across the US. The requirements in East Whiteland are 2 stalls per unit with 1 or more bedroom. This would mean that the property would need 240 residential parking stalls for the project, as well as 1 stall per 200 square feet for the medical office building, which would result in 32 parking spots for that, a total of 272 parking. ITE standards for this project would be 1.27 stalls per unit or 0.68 stalls per bedroom. That would result in 136 to 142 parking stalls. And then also additionally 2.63 parking stalls per 1,000 square feet on the medical office or 17 office parking stalls for a total of 153 to 159. The total stalls required under the East Whiteland Code would be 272 stalls, of which we would be short 76.
Could I interrupt 1 second? Who owns the office? I'm sorry, the medical office?
So we currently own the medical office building.
So
We
it's
closed
vacant,
on that
correct?
last month.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're under contract for the other unit in the condo association. We went under contract on that last week. So the owner approves of the conversion here and is providing a letter to the board of such. Under the ITE standards, as you continue here, ITE would recommend 157 stalls for the project, of which there is a surplus of 39 stalls. As mentioned, we would operate this property under a strictly enforced parking permit program as well for residential tenants to ensure that we manage the parking efficiently. Additionally, the condo bylaws already allow for shared parking outside of regular business hours when residential parking demand is highest, while maintaining required parking for the other 2 condo units. Like I mentioned, we're under contract with one of the 2 other owners, and we own the second of third units. So we will effectively own the entire condo association once approvals are granted. And it's contingent on receiving those entitlements. We can go to the next slide.
And the reason for this is I think it's actually really informative. So I'm sorry, I almost
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
No worries. So we currently actively manage 2,041 units across our portfolio of extended stay conversions specifically, of which the portfolio average of parking stalls per unit is 1.21. You can see that East Whiteland, the project here, would supply a 1.63 parking ratio compared to the rest of the portfolio, which is on the higher end of the range. Additionally, our actual utilization or our vehicles per unit sits between 0.9 and 1.0 for these projects that we manage. This is mostly because of the size of the units and the demographic of the tenants that we see. We see a lot of young professionals or individuals that are moving into their first apartment. And those individuals don't typically have multiple cars. And so while our supply ratio is a 1.2 to 1, our actual utilization is somewhere between 0.9 and 1.0.
That's why I like that slide. I really do think that like on the ground parking usage in projects that are going to be effectively the same as what we are proposing here is more telling than any study that anybody could possibly do. I mean, they have functioning numbers of projects that are currently being parked that we have the data from.
And if we go to the last slide here, This is a shared parking model that was included in the parking evaluation. As you can see, peak usage for the medical office building versus the residential overlap, with medical office peak times being between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. And residential peak hours being nighttime hours. As you can see from the parking evaluation, the proposed supply of 196 is assumed to be more than sufficient to cover what is needed at this site. And this lines up with the recommendation from our parking engineer and from the ITE standards.
Thank you, Donnie. So I know this is a little bit more of a robust presentation that you all prefer for the zoning hearing report, so I do appreciate the time. Yes, Scott?
One other question, clarify, there is a parcel of land, right off 30. Can you speak on what's going on with that parcel?
Yes, so that parcel is currently vacant. There is no development on it. However, it does abut Route 30, and it is a prime spot for some sort of complementary use that's going to go very well with what's already on this property. So there is hopefully going to be a multifamily development, a medical office building. I think it would make sense to develop that as some sort of retail or some sort of complementary use for what's already there and what's along Route 30. I think this is just my opinion, but I think turning that site into a sea of parking that we don't think is even going to be needed for this particular multifamily use doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of optimizing properties in the township, especially those along, major commercial thoroughfares. It is going to be under ownership by the applicant at some point. It is part of the condominium association. I mean, we can certainly consider maybe putting like a reserve parking requirement on there, but quite frankly, based on the numbers that we're seeing and based on the parking study that's been prepared by Dynamic Engineering, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to convert that into concrete.
Sounds like it's too loud. There's also the racquetball. There's a racquetball club right there next door, so.
It's technically a pickleball.
It is a pickleball?
Yeah.
Okay.
You might want to compete with them, I don't know.
I was thinking a food truck, but that would be fun.
No. All right.
Thank you. So, we're happy to have wherever you guys land on this, whether.
I think I'll say this, I think the zoning board's more than competent to handle whether the variance be granted or not, and I don't feel need to send our solicitor.
Okay, thank you. Do any of you have an opinion as to that proposed condition of approval that would require the hotel to cease operations during the renovation? Would you all prefer to keep that condition of approval, or would you rather see something more like a phased renovation throughout the property to encourage,
Personally, to make that decision, I would like to hear some numbers on how many, I guess, potential residents may be displaced. I obviously don't want to cause a lot of hardship. If it's possibility to shift them around, that sounds much better than disowning people.
Yeah, that was my thought as well. But
Similar to what I said a couple of weeks ago, if to work around those that are living there and not totally displace them. So I guess you would call that a phased-in approach.
Okay.
Would be my preferred. I would also say to have in your back pocket the land, the vacant land, to possibly utilize for additional parking if needed somehow, to see how this works
and maybe we could do it
over a phased-in period to see how. Again, that's been the biggest drawback on this property is the parking. And that might be a solution to, utilize that land at some point in time, but in the meantime, hold it in abeyance to see how parking situation really does work out with the main line, with the diagnostic building.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Zach, I was gonna say, thoughts.
Parking's always tricky, right? The code always wants too much. People never feel like there's enough. So I'll leave out any sort of color commentary. I will say that the parking studies, using those sort of like third-party authoritative standards, they kind of make it work a couple different ways. I can't say that there won't be a parking problem. I know there's a lot of other businesses and activity out there, but so I'll put aside the parking question just for a second, unless you do have specific questions. I did just want to mention, I was running back through the conditions. There's lots of different ones. I think they're all still valid. Condition 11, it talks about modifications that may be needed to upgrade the facility, from the change in use to address any like existing, maybe health, safety, welfare type issues, which we don't have to get into now. There are a few code references that I'd want to confirm against any more recent building code and fire code updates. So I just wanted to mention that we may need to mark this up a little bit, but otherwise I think a lot of the conditions are still hold true. There's still a requirement to go through, the fire marshal's office, permits, things like that, clean up any sort of existing issues out there. There are conditions for management, maintenance. There's conditions for all sorts of things. So to the extent that there's nothing or something that's not covered in here, please let me know. But I did want to just point that one out in particular.
Yeah, just let me know if that needs to be revised. We're happy to do that before
Yep.
the zoning.
Yeah, I'll work with our codes office and our fire marshal's office to make sure those are all accurate references.
And I would be remiss if I didn't ask Chief Yeager, from a parking standpoint, I know you looked at it some time ago. Spur of the moment here, is there anything that jumps out at you that you would like to point out?
I don't really have anything specific. My thoughts are always like overflow, people have parties, little things happen and, when you get a busy weekend, you may get a bunch of people. So I always like the extra spots someplace in the event that happens. So it's not my forte for knowing what a place like this would do, as opposed to a hotel. So I can only go with the averages.
Well, thank you for.
Just- Yeah, just real quick, with regards to the current occupant as a extended stay hotel, what's the current, or as you've seen over the last year, what the occupancy rate of this 120, this in relates to parking, right? So if you already have 120 units and parking's a problem or parking isn't a problem, how would that, in my head, I'm thinking, how could that change, right? If you already have 120 units and people are using it and there are issues, then obviously maybe there's a need for additional parking. If there aren't issues, how would that be different with the multifamily or 1 and 2 bedroom apartments versus the hotel? That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think I will say that from our perspective as the hotel, we haven't had any parking issues. I know that the other owners have raised parking concerns. We feel like that was a front in order to get what they wanted out of the transaction. As the parking study shows, even at a full occupancy, I think there's sufficient parking here. And I think there were concerns from the other unit owners on tournaments at the pickleball facility. I think he had mentioned they had added additional courts to the property, but don't quote me on that. And at certain times there were tournaments, but it was never an issue for our hotel management team.
Okay.
We've worked very closely with them on this issue, given it was presented by the other unit owners. And when we convert this, we would implement active parking management, so towing, permits, and that sort of thing to really control our parking and keep our residents on our parking in our parcel.
Okay.
I think we would be more concerned of other businesses coming onto our property rather than our residents going onto other parking spots.
Okay. And last for me, with regard to all these changes and updates and renovating, is there any plans or area that you can utilize for additional green space within the current footprint of the facility to add to, if you're, especially if you're acquiring all the, everything in that area, is there the ability to create some more green space for the residents of the facility?
Yeah, I will say we try to maintain the existing landscaping on these sites. It's usually mature and very well grown. I like the landscaping that currently exists, so I think at a minimum we would maintain that landscaping. We also have typically a pretty robust budget for landscaping to add on to what is existing. So we set aside between $75,000 and $100,000 typically for additional landscaping. That doesn't include any sort of landscaping for the development of the land parcel. That would be just for the multifamily.
Okay.
And I'm happy to talk to the project engineer as well to see if there's any opportunity to remove any of the
Just
existing
thinking if
pavement.
you're moving stuff around,
Yeah.
you're updating it, why not take that opportunity
Yeah.
to add additional green space for the residents? So,
Happy to take a look at that. Yep.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly.
Is this parking by permit or no?
It would be, yes. That's
Okay,
what
so
they're
everybody,
to have permits issued per unit for residents with.
so a one-bedroom gets how many permits?
One per leaseholder
And then a two-bedroom gets
would get two.
two.
Yeah, so
So-
one bedroom would get one and two bedroom would get two.
So in the event of a problem where it became a real problem, an issue, people fighting, whatever, doing things with cars that they shouldn't be doing. One of the solutions is obviously to reduce somehow the parking, whatever it be for like a two-bedroom unit or something, or to make them for sale or charge money. So that was just kind of what I was thinking, like, so there is something you can do afterwards if it becomes a problem.
Yeah, I mean, a parking problem is not something that an owner and an operator wants either. It's not beneficial for them to have residents that are fighting over where they're going to park and there's not enough parking on site. So there is certainly an incentive for the property owner and for the manager to make sure that the parking is working.
Thank you.
Just maybe to clarify, it sounds like the board's not looking to take a position, but do you want these conditions that were previously drafted to be relayed to the zoning hearing board? There's about
Yes, please.
19 of them. Okay,
Yeah.
will do.
This one? Oh, okay. Yeah, Rita Van Rossum, 1011 King Road. I guess I was interested in hearing about the parking because I kind of agree. Excess parking sucks. I mean, every time I go to the Home Depot, it ticks me off that there's that huge parking lot that never gets used that I've ever seen, except to, I don't know, store mulch or something. Anyway, so I kind of agree that they shouldn't have to build parking if they don't need it. On the other hand, our ordinance is written the way it is, and they're asking for a variance. And a variance, they have to prove hardship. And I don't know exactly what their hardship is about supplying this parking. So that's sort of one of my questions. So I'm kind of wondering if we can't sort of do like a balance, like you said, either say, here's this area where it would be future parking, or maybe what we could do is, I think this happened in other places, they say you can do parking or you can do a fee in lieu of parking. Because I feel like giving them this variance is it's a little bit of a giveaway. I mean, I'm sure it benefits them that they can not have to build parking, not maintain parking, et cetera. So I kind of feel like they should be proving hardship, A, to get the variance. And if they can't prove hardship, why are we just giving this to them? Why don't we get something in exchange? Like Clinton said, perhaps a green space for the residents. And green space, in my opinion, is not landscaping. It's not like a bunch of shrubs. Green space is a patio or lawn, someplace where the kids can hang out, play, that kind. I'd say that's green space, an open space that the residents can actually use with plantings around it, sure. But, foundation plantings, that's not green space. Anyway, I hope I was articulate and you understand what I'm trying to convey. So thanks.
To answer kind of your questions of what our role is. We, as Board of Supervisors, do not grant variances. That'll be up to the zoning hearing where we're deciding whether or not to send our solicitor to be for or against the proposed variances. If you want to express your views on variances to the zoning hearing board, that meeting will be posted for you to do. In in terms of the back and forth, which you're speaking about, getting some benefits from what they're asking, that can and will be addressed during their, I guess, land development, or if they have to come in for any permits or permissions. Would that be correct, Zach?
Yeah, so they won't be coming through land development
Okay, yeah.
unless they make more major changes than I'm aware of. It's just a building permit process for the retrofit, the renovations.
I misspoke then, excuse that last part.
Unless they build something on the pad site that they were discussing that they have under agreement.
Zoning hearing board will have the opportunity to, if it's granted approval, to impose conditions related to the application.
And that meeting is on June 22nd, just so you have it.
Is it working? Can't hear anything.
Go ahead, Richard.
You're on, Richard.
Thank you. The volume wasn't working. Thank you. This is Richard Wall, Westgate Circle. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I was unable to make it tonight because of family daycare, taking care of my kids. But at any rate, just want to ask a quick question following up on what Mr. Smith said and what our police chief said. And then I wanted to ask a quick question, please. What is the change in population between the present population there and what they expect after this development if it's approved?
I can try to answer that. So the number of units on the site is not going to change in any capacity. So right now it's 120 hotel units. We are proposing 120 multifamily apartments.
Right, and I know that number, but I'm curious as to what the residency number is right now in regards to parking, potential parking problems in the future, as well as increased traffic. And
Yeah,
also,
let's
if I
say
might add, sorry to interrupt, and when we say 120 units, if there's a husband and wife or partnerships in there, then we're talking about 240 cars or whatever. So that's just what I want to know. What's the projected change in residents there, if any, if you know?
Yeah, so a typical multifamily property will operate at 95% occupancy, so 95% of 120. And then, so it'd be like 114 residents at a time. A typical extended stay hotel will operate at about 60% occupancy. However, this property is operated at about 30 to 40%. It has struggled to maintain that occupancy at a standard level. And then as well, to your other point, given the size of these units, these are typically 500 square feet for the one beds and 750 square feet for the two beds. We typically only see one individual in the one bed and then two, perhaps roommates in the two bed. Like I mentioned, our portfolio sees a vehicle to unit count of 0.9 to 1. And given the demographic of renter, doesn't typically reach that 2 that you're referencing. I think a husband and wife would share a car, or someone would bike, that sort of thing.
So I appreciate that real quick, and then I'll wrap up. And again, thank you to the board and everybody. So in the general terms, and I just raised an issue, we have a lot of vacancy. I spoke at the last meeting. We have a lot of vacant apartment, office buildings that are in which the owners are attempting to change them to apartments. And I want to make a comment in the overall broad context, not necessarily focusing on this development, though I am concerned about increase in residents if that happens. Real quick, in 2010, we had 10,500 residents. In 2025, we had 15,000. That's a 43% increase in population in that time period. So I'm concerned about the impact of the available office space and changing things to apartments. And I just want to make sure that we as a community maintain a team mentality and we participate. We already have heavily contested or traffic congestion at various intersections. And finally, I would just refer to the 2016 comprehensive plan update, where the community was interviewed at that time, now going back 10 years. And one of the big issues they talked about was traffic congestion. And the comment that I'll close with, quoting from that 2016 comprehensive plan that I asked the board to consider if the zoning hearing board approves this and other similar requests. It said Route 30, quote, is the result of incremental development over time by a multitude of owners with no unified vision and a lackluster appearance. And I want to make sure that we don't let that happen again. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Go ahead. Carla, go ahead.
Okay, I just have a couple comments, and it's kind of the magical.
Carla, can you hear us?
Yes, I had to hit unmute. It's kind of the magical parking thing. I would appreciate it greatly if the township stuck to the requirements, because you can't say definitively 100% that you're not going to ever get a one-bedroom apartment with just one adult. You might have a couple in a one-bedroom, and this isn't an urban environment where you can catch the train or the bus at the corner. It's suburbia, so people are going to have more than one car. So I think that has to be taken into consideration. And as far as keeping it occupied while it's being renovated, I don't know that that's actually going to work. And then the other thing is, you have some extended stays in this township where you have police activity with problematic residents, and I don't know if this is one of them. I just see occasionally stuff that goes across, like emergencies, or you hear about stuff after the fact in the community. So when you have the workforce housing and stuff, are there people that are considered, for whatever reason, to be in a protected class that are living there already? And how does that play into this whole thing? And that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Carla.
So if we can move on to any property management, code enforcement update, nothing? Nothing, okay. All right. Michael? You want to lead us on the public comment with general statement?
Comment now would be the time to.
I thought you had some.
I can answer any questions that people may have about it, but
Okay.
I will hear what public comments might be. Go ahead, set up there.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, again, sorry about your father. And Peter, sorry that I always seem to yell expletives at you. Next time I'll try not to, but you have to meet me halfway. The township, oh yeah, there was I shouldn't have mentioned that. The township's 2024 final approval of the Sentinel Data Center accepts Sentinel's stormwater runoff plan. It does so using the phrase remediated brownfield site. And I'm talking about section 3A of that approval. You might have it before you, I don't know. That remediated brownfield phrase comes directly from a Sentinel waiver request prepared by JMR Engineering. It's not surprising that the township would use that term. Other stormwater engineering documents prepared by JMR say essentially the same thing. For example, the site has been remediated and removed from the national priorities list. Am I being clear? Okay, yeah, that's fine. Is this thing on? Is this thing on? Yeah. No, okay, yeah. All brownfield remediation was completed despite the abandoned plans for construction. But we are talking about stormwater management for an actual Superfund site, not a remediated brownfield site, not a site that has been taken off the national priorities list. The operative stormwater runoff plan doesn't factor that in. Maybe we'll even have a brand new Cancer Alley. I certainly hope not. Now, I wonder, do we need to waste time proving that the foot mineral is on the national priorities list? It's a 2-minute Google. You can find it. I have it right here if you'd like to look at it. Do we need to prove that the official circular definition expressly says that if a site is on the national priority list, it is not a remediated brownfield site? Again, on my computer, I will share it with anybody here. I will share documents. Anybody needs them, I have them. Oh, is this, you could, yeah. Do we need to discuss that these kind of engineering documents should be using the legal, precise definitions? And you know, that's expectation of a reasonable reader. So I think, I'm guessing, actually, do we need to go over any of those things?
All of the issues regarding the data center.
Give me a timeout if you would here. He's talking.
Oh, sorry. All of the issues regarding the data center are either already resolved by the Court of Common Pleas or are still pending in front of the Court of Common Pleas. Or if there are EPA-related issues, those issues are outside of the township's jurisdiction. Those are within the jurisdiction of the Environmental Protection Agency. So the township does have responsibilities vis-a-vis the environment, of course. You're raising issues regarding a specific application, and what I'm suggesting and stating is that the specific application that you're discussing is the issues that you're discussing with regard to this specific application are either before the Court of Common Pleas or have been resolved by the Court of Common Pleas as of today, or should be addressed to the Environmental Protection Agency. The township doesn't have any jurisdiction over Environmental Protection Agency deliberations or decisions or actions. And as to the land development issues and the zoning issues, those are either already resolved by the Court of Common Pleas or are pending in front of the Court of Common Pleas and therefore outside of the township's jurisdiction. Generally speaking, the township, of course, has environmental obligations. You're asking questions about a specific application.
Yeah, because you have specific environmental, right? Or just in general.
And again, those issues, the township no longer has jurisdiction over those issues. Those issues are pending either in front of the court.
Actually, you could revoke the 2024 approval. You have before you a situation where you know that the stormwater plan, and I've told you now, the stormwater plan is made not to factor in Superfund site, yet you know there's a Superfund site. You could revoke. You have that right. We will probably revoke it for you. We will probably rip it out of your hands. But we are hoping, one last frickin' hope, that you will become heroes instead of cowards and stand up. Thank you, Mr. Gill.
Sorry, I didn't plan to speak 3 times. Brita Van Rossum, 1011 King Road. Yeah, also about the data center. I guess now they've gone back to the original plan, which is much smaller. And I guess because they're afraid they were never going to get the new plan approved, it seemed like. So anyway, the old plan, I think everybody agrees, is kind of obsolete and out of date. And I'm sure that the applicant, Ladane and Sentinel, aren't super happy about building that version of it. I'm sure they would much rather have done the new version. So our suspicion, and I don't know if there's other people here from Malvern Hunt. I'm not in Malvern Hunt, but anyway, is that they're going to start trying to massage the plan. They've got something approved, it's in there, they're going to start, and then they're going to kind of start maybe doing a little bit of wheeling and dealing. And what, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we're back. What we would like in the community is to be informed if they come to you and start saying things. I mean, trying to, having discussions. We would just like to be informed if there are ongoing discussions with Sentinel or with Green Fig to change what is in that plan. Because, well, anyway, we just would like to know. So I don't know if you can put it on the website, saying, hey, these things have come up and we're discussing it. Or, I mean, I don't expect you to like call me personally and say, hey, this is happening. But perhaps the community at large, there could be a way that we could know what is going on, because we feel like they said at the meeting, these developers do tend to be a little bit slippery. And we would just like to know what they're trying to slide past. Okay, thank you so much.
Any other comments from the public? Donna, anyone on there? Okay. Thank you. Peter, if you assist me with reading the consent agenda, I'd appreciate it.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair. I will read the consent agenda, and if anyone has any questions upon any of the different points, please stop me. I'd like to read the consent agenda and approve the meeting minutes from the May 13th, 2026 Board of Supervisors meeting. Ratified payments of bills in the amount of $627,067.69. Except the, I guess it would be May, or would that be June Treasury report? The May Treasurer's report, thank you. Approve the People's Light annual contribution of $2,500. Consider approval of First Amendment to display lease agreement between East Whiteland Township and Outfront Media LLC. I forget what that is in reference to. That would be, Mike, would you know what that refers to? Or Zach? Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, so this is essentially to amend the lease for the billboard that's on Conestoga that faces Route 202. When it was installed, the southern facing sign, so like northbound traffic coming from Westchester to King of Prussia, it was visible from a wider area than it should have been. To make a long story short, we've essentially negotiated with them to leave that display non-operative and to only allow them to display on the northbound, so the King of Prussia facing side. So if you're coming south on 202. And to clarify some of the landscaping and pruning requirements, there will be no pruning nor any display on the Westchester facing side where we had issues in the past. Also, we're able to get some additional advertising time on the monument sign to allow for more localized messaging for community events and township sponsored or township affiliated or supported events, just to put it in a nutshell.
Now that you say it out loud, I remember reading that. Thank you very much. That is a good change. I'd like to approve the purchase of the Fast Melt 777 thermoplastic pre-melter kettle for the amount of $26,000 from Sherwin-Williams using CoStar's discount.
You should see how excited John Neal is behind the desk.
He's blocked by the podium.
He can't sit still.
Approve the purchase and installation of a video surveillance system at Ridley Springs for $17,012.77 from GoTo, again with CoStar's pricing. John, if you could, I guess, give us insight where those cameras might go. and what they're, I guess, the security they'll provide for.
Yeah, right now that's a very remote property and there's a lot of buildings up there and it's the very end of the township. Parts of it aren't even in our township. And there's nobody there anymore. So we want to keep an eye on things. So
Makes perfect sense to me. I was just curious. Thank you. If there's no other questions for the consent agenda, Mr. Clinton, would you like to make a motion?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read by Mr. Peter Fixler.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And passes.
Never say that.
I know. Just say, well, the meeting is adjourned.